Hi, this is Bhanuj Kapil. I'm a culture journalist and I'm here on the Taking It Slow podcast to discuss the Pegasus project and the leaks that have come out. If you enjoy this conversation, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.
It's another Sunday. You know what that means. It's time to take it slow. और विशु क्या हाल चाल?
यार मेरे हालचाल तो बहुत ही सही चल रहे हैं। हमारी लाइफ बहुत ज़्यादा इजी हो चुकी है भैया। कल मैं ऐसे
क्यों?
ही मैं बातें कर रहा था अपने डायरेक्टर से ऑफिस में कि मेरे को जूते लेने हैं। उन्होंने नए जूते लिए थे एंड मैंने नेक्स्ट टाइम अपना लैपटॉप खोला एंड इंटरनेट ब्राउजर खोल के कोई भी वेबसाइट में खोलता तो उस पर जूतों की ऐड आ रही है। लाइफ हैज बिकम सो इजी यार। मतलब जो लोग ऐसे बोलते थे ना, ऐसे रूमर्स रहते थे कि हमारा माइक्रोफोन हमारे रिकॉर्ड कर रहा है क्या हर टाइम पे, एंड आई थिंक दैट हैज बिकम अ रियलिटी एंड आई एम
Yeah,
फाइन विद
yeah.
इट। आई एम फाइन विद इट।
So अगर कोई मुझे अभी सुन रहा है, I would like a Harley Davidson, please, to anybody who's listening.
टू योर सीबीआई एजेंट जो आपको असाइन किया हुआ है।
So no prizes for guessing. The biggest news story of the week has been the Pegasus leaks. We thought let's talk about what this means for you and I, what this means for us as common people, how it affects our lives. विशु की लाइफ में तो क्लियरली जूते मिल रहे हैं उसको,
सही
बट
में
आपको और मुझे कैसे इफेक्ट करता है? सो वी हैव समवन टुडे ऑन द पॉडकास्ट हु हैज बीन वर्किंग इन द जर्नलिज्म स्पेस फॉर 15 years. Apart from being a great cultural journalist, he also writes a lot about the political scenario in the country as well. And it was a very refreshing chat with him. So apart from going into the details, we also learned about where he stands mentally. क्या future क्या है इस सब के? Is this the reality of life now?
और क्या हम कुछ कर सकते हैं इसको बचाने के लिए कि ये फ्यूचर ना हो।
हाँ, उसका जवाब था अपने फोन को डस्टबिन में फेंक दो. So yeah.
Yep.
So without any further ado, let's dive right in, people. Something that's been on all our minds this week is the Pegasus issue. क्या है, क्यों हो रहा है, are we affected by it? So for those who don't know, recently the Guardian disclosed the story. It was an expose of sorts which told us that there was this malware called Pegasus, जो एक Israeli tech company है NSO करके, they have made this software and they sell it to a number of governments to
Yep.
spy on people too. Because that's how they play. To spy on people, to
Yep.
spy on opposition
Which
parties,
is
to spy on,
which is supposed to be a good thing. No, they don't
yeah.
they don't sell it to spy on opposition parties. They sell it
Yeah.
for anti-terrorist activities. But yeah,
Anti-terrorist activities, anti-nation activities, and
right.
there were a number of journalists as well who were listed in those names who were being spied on. So we thought, to understand the topic better, to understand the nuances better, why not bring someone on the podcast who belongs to the same field and might be able to give us an opinion from similar issues. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to invite someone who's been in the journalism field for almost 15 years now. It gives me a lot of pleasure to welcome on the Taking It Slow podcast, Bhanuj Kappal. Hey Bhanuj, how are you, man?
Hi,
Hey,
hi guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
For anyone who doesn't know, Bhanuj is a culture journalist, and he's been writing about stuff extensively for, as I said, almost 15 years. He has been with a number of publications. He has been a freelancer for the last few years as well. Bhanuj, for those who might not be aware of your work, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, so I started off as a music journalist, where I covered the sort of independent rock scene in India and rock and then electronica and everything else, and then I branched out into other culture stuff. So I've also, especially in the last few years, kind of focused on anti-caste protest music, anti-caste protest art, and so essentially looking at politics through the lens of culture. I also have, I did a podcast with Audible, one of the Audible original series called Gali Se Gali Tak, which is about hip hop, which is so that in particular is also currently an area of interest. And yeah, apart from that, I write freelance as much as I can.
Nice. Lovely having you here, Bhanuj. So, obviously, you also must have been a little surprised by this news break that a number of journalists are being spied on, their phones are being hacked by this malware. What was your initial reaction to this story when it broke?
I wasn't that surprised. What
Yeah.
was surprising perhaps is the scale of it, and also, I mean, the fact that somebody actually broke the story. Because I mean, like, I don't cover politics that much, but if you cover politics at all, then you're going to come in contact with people who are activists, people who are journalists who do this more seriously. And pretty much everyone just has assumed for a while that their phones are being tapped. The thing that's surprising about Pegasus is the amount of control that they got over your device, right? It isn't just that
Yep.
you expect your WhatsApp messages to be read because even Navika Kumar can read them.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you expect your emails to be intercepted. What you don't expect is for your phone to be turned into a microphone and a camera. Someone wants it, right? What you don't expect is even encrypted data, which you thought was safe, or it is as safe as you can make it. Even that is now easily accessible. Essentially, they clone your phone. They have full access to everything you have on your phone.
Yep. Yep.
And these days, we know that the phone is a spying machine. This is, it's a joke that everyone has. But earlier it was like you maybe click on a link, they'll send you an SMS with a link or something. There was these, you knew the vectors of hacking.
Yep.
This doesn't require that at all. So now there is, no matter what tools you use to protect yourself, in this case, there's nothing you can do.
Yep. You can't do anything. Like Apple sells its phones based on privacy. Like they're selling USB's privacy, and even those are hackable now.
Yeah, any phone is essentially hackable.
So for people who might not be aware of what we are talking about, what the complexities of the malware are, Pegasus, as we just touched, is a malware which is used to spy on your phone, on all your data, on your pictures, on all your videos that you might have stored in your phone, on the emails that you might be writing to people, on your WhatsApp chats, messages, etc. How does this work? So as Bhanu just said, it is a zero-click threat. Earlier, what used to happen was you were sent a suspicious email or a suspicious message where you had to click on a link where it would redirect you to some other website, and then it would download a payload on your phone.
Yeah.
Or an APK on your phone, and through that APK your phone could have been controlled. But through this Pegasus software, you don't need to do anything. You can just receive a WhatsApp call and you're done.
Yeah.
It's that easy. So
or not even that, as in you don't know what the vector is like, because they haven't released all of that data yet. But it's not necessary that there's even a call to receive. It might happen while your phone is lying there. At one moment it's not infected, and the next it is.
So let's talk a little about how does Pegasus come into inception. Now, all the devices that we use, all the Android phones or our laptops or MacBooks or any electronic device that you use, they subconsciously are a part of your lifestyle now. They are an extension of your limbic system, if I can put it that way. Every software that has been designed has its own shares of bugs, right? There are ways to bypass a security mechanism. There are ways to bypass the gateways that they've set up. So Google and Apple pay shitloads of money to people, to researchers who can find these bugs, or who can find these way around their security mechanisms. How does the NSO come into the picture? NSO again is the Israeli tech company that is the maker or a creator of Pegasus. How do they come into the picture? They find these bugs, but they don't report them back to Google or Apple. They sell these bugs or sell these mechanisms to governments, to spying agencies. That's how Pegasus exists. That's how their ecosystem works. Do you want to add something, Bhanuj?
Yeah. So NSO, so Israel, because of the position that it's in, which is it is an apartheid state, which with a significant chunk of the population within its borders is essentially occupied. Plus, they are surrounded by hostile states. So Israel is always, because of its numbers, because of its location, it has always had to have an edge in tech, in technology. And over the last couple of decades, especially, it has outsourced. It has started essentially turning that into a private industry. NSO is one of the companies. So these sort of hacking companies, private companies, have always existed. But what NSO was able to do with Pegasus was that earlier, like I said, the companies were using attack vectors that required action from the person who's being hacked, right? And they were largely more focused on interception or beating encryption. So they were more about getting the data. But when Pegasus came and NSO came into the picture, what they brought to the table was they bypassed the need to break encryption, because they were taking control of your phone. This is actually the idea came because the startup that the two of the founders had before this was a device that allowed your phone to be controlled remotely for software companies that or hardware companies that wanted to do tech support and stuff like that.
Nice.
Like you have like a remote, like for you have TeamViewer for PCs, for example.
Yeah.
So it was something similar to that, but then they were approached by Israeli defense officials who saw the opportunity because encryption spreading, the big problem was that you could get the data, but how could you access what it actually said? That breaking encryption is a very even if you can do it, it's a very resource intensive process.
Right.
Right. It's supercomputers and all to be able to do it. So this was just an easier way because you just took control of the phone and the phone treated you as someone, as the person who it belongs to. So whatever encryption, whatever security credentials and all were there, if they were saved on the phone as they would be, and you can use it to access everything. And not just access it, you could use it to basically turn your phone camera on, turn your phone microphone on whenever they wanted. Even, I don't know if Pegasus specifically, but I'm quite sure it can also be used to plant data. Because we've seen this happen with the Bhima Koregaon 16, right?
Yep.
Right. Bhima Koregaon case. So Arsenal Consulting, which is a cybersecurity firm in the US, found that on Rona Wilson's laptop, and I think a couple of others, Surinder Gatling as well, a couple of other people, evidence was planted by an outside hacker. These were files that they had never opened and that had just been placed there. So Pegasus, I'm quite sure, is either capable of doing that, or if not, that these guys are working on it. So these guys kind of took over that surveillance space. When they started out, it wasn't they didn't have zero-click attacks when they started out, but they were very aggressive in terms of sales. They got some really good deals, and they got an investor who purchased it for, I think, 120 million, a venture capital fund. So they had a lot of money. So now it's a 750 people company, out of which 2/3 are in research and development, which is they're paying people to find these vulnerabilities in the code in different phones. And they have thousands more that are contractors. So even though, say, Apple and Google are also throwing money at people to find these vulnerabilities, you're competing, their aim of interest is to keep the average consumer safe. While these guys are throwing a lot more money and a lot more resources at finding these things, and they're not above buying these vulnerabilities off the market as well. And then what they do is Pegasus is a tool. Like you said, it's a malware, it's a particular tool that they sell for millions of dollars. So it's not a cheap tool. It's a very it requires a
someone
lot
like
of
you
research,
and
a lot of
I,
development.
someone like you and I will not be able to afford a Pegasus if we want to spy on our
No,
friends.
because this takes millions of dollars to develop. And the thing is, as companies constantly find their own vulnerabilities and patch them, it needs to constantly be updated. They need to have, constantly be looking for new vulnerabilities. So it's a very expensive development process. What Pegasus did is that because it's a private company, earlier, we know that, especially since Snowden, we know the US spies on anyone it wants to. US can spy. The NSA can find access to your data as much as it wants. But and a few other countries, I'm sure Russia and China also have these capabilities. But
maybe India too.
Big India to that level. No, but the thing is that earlier you needed it to be a state which has a significant amount of resources, technical knowledge to be able to do this. What Pegasus has done is turned it into an off-the-shelf product.
Yep.
So if you're a government, but you don't have the money or you don't have the people to develop this on your own, which is a much more expensive product because it's not just about the product. You have to develop the entire ecosystem within which the product can be developed. You can now just spend a few $1 million and buy it off the shelf. And so that has allowed states that otherwise would not be able to conduct this level of surveillance to really punch above their weight. And unfortunately, the activists, journalists, the targets in these countries have nowhere near the same amount of resources to protect themselves.
Yep.
So that is the big problem here. Part one, the scale of the level of control it can get on your device, and without any easy ways to figure out if you've been hacked. But the second thing is that now there are lots of regimes. There are lots of very terrible regimes that are able to use that have, as these leaks show, have used these tools to target people who have nothing to do with counterterrorism or nothing to do with drug trafficking or any of the other stated targets. For example, Jamal Khashoggi, who was the Washington Post columnist who
Yeah,
was
yeah,
killed in
yeah,
Turkey by the
yeah,
Saudis.
yeah.
His phone, not just his phone, his fiance,
Yep.
a couple of his friends, family member, all of them were successfully hacked by Pegasus. So essentially, this tool allowed the Saudi government to capture and kill a dissident in a different country. So, I mean, it becomes very dangerous in the wrong hands.
And how do you define those wrong hands, Manoj? Any government would want to have such a software and they'll justify it by saying that we need it for anti-terrorist activities. So
Yeah.
as a court, or like, where does someone come in and step in and say that, okay, this is right and this is wrong? Because every government has reasons to justify it, that this is for security purposes.
So then it depends. So that's the thing. It depends on the sort of state that you have. For example, in Saudi Arabia, no court is asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? In India, the problem is, for example, our intelligence services are not technically statutory bodies. There is no law in
Yeah, right.
parliament that gives them their powers and also limits their powers. Apart from the government itself, they're not legally accountable to parliament. And that means that checks and safeguards are not there. In a country like the US, in Europe, in more developed democracies, these safeguards, while imperfect, because these abuses absolutely happen in those countries as well,
Yep.
at least give you a recourse. If you find out something like this has happened, then you have a certain
Yeah.
amount of recourse. The bigger problem is that these weapons, because this is essentially a cyber weapon, Pegasus.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
once you put it out there, once you've given it, especially to governments that may not have the best cybersecurity, that may be corrupt, there is every chance that eventually this tool will also make its way out of the little controlled list of clients that you have. And then it becomes even more worrisome because there are now lots of lawsuits against the NSO in Israel and I think in Turkey as well, because that's another country where its organization is legally based. There are certain obligations. They have committed not to give these tools to governments because also they have to get permission from the Israeli Defense
Yep.
Ministry. Since it is a weapon. The way forward for this would be, which is very idealistic and quite unlikely, would be a moratorium on private sale of these sort of things. We can't stop governments from developing it themselves, right? Governments have the resources and they either have
the need.
they have justifications that are either correct or made up, but they have the justification. But when it is private companies doing it, the level of accountability automatically is lower because they're only accountable to their shareholders. They are not accountable to citizens in any way. And your level of control over it is also much more limited. And if weapons like these get out, they get to a point where a terrorist group or any sort of non-state actor, which could be anything from a malicious hacking group to a terrorist group, gets hacked on something like this and is able to access data. I mean, like the actual threat of it is quite high, which is why now there are some voices that are calling for an international moratorium on the use and sale of these sort of weapons. Whether or not that will actually happen is, well, quite unlikely.
I agree. It is very unlikely to happen, and because nobody will officially accept that we've.
Yeah.
There are tens of ways of bypassing the official channels to acquire.
And Pegasus is just one tool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even the NSO has also another tool, for example, which you can use to hack drones midair. But there are also a lot of other companies that are doing it. And of course, there are so in terms of, I think the Pandora's box has been opened already.
So you're saying that this is the reality of life now. We better get accustomed to it. This is the.
I mean, we should fight against it. This is absolutely wrong, immoral, and ethical. But we also now have to live with the knowledge that we live in a world where this sort of surveillance is routine.
So
you have
Manoj,
to
I will play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
So you're saying this is morally wrong. This might be morally wrong according to a section of the society, right?
Yeah.
So people like you and I, people who encourage logical discourse, I feel we live in a very small bubble, which is a part of a huge societal echo chamber, and in our small bubble, we find this morally wrong. but there is a very vast section of the society which might feel that such steps are necessary, which might feel that such steps are not immoral. They are the need of the hour. If their aim is to make a Hindu Rashtra or whatever, these things are very much the need of the hour, and that's the precise reason why they've voted who they've voted to power.
Yeah, but they have to realize that, first of all, it's a fundamental right to privacy issue. It is not necessarily an ideological left or right issue. It is, do you as a person have a right to privacy? And I believe that in any functioning state that is not an authoritarian fascist state, there has to be a right to liberty. You can allow the state in certain incidents. For example, if legitimate groups that are spreading terror, there can be in limited sort of situations, there can be some allowances for this sort of surveillance, but then that has to be, there has to be checks and balances. There has to be an independent judge or an independent authority. It's not just the government giving the government permission to go spy on someone else, right? There has to be a proper structure for how it is done, and accountability, and some amount of transparency also, if not to the public, then at least to certain trusted members of parliament, so that there are outside agencies that are making sure that you are not abusing this. Now,
But the trusted members of the parliament are also going to be a part of the government itself, no?
no, that's the thing. You have to have, you will. This is how it works in the US, for example. You have Senate committees and congressional
Yeah.
committees, which are bipartisan, and
Hmm.
so those people get access to classified data, and then they do oversight.
They create checks and
I mean,
balances.
yes, so there are multiple sort of models that you could do this, but we don't have any of that, right?
The checks and balances in India, like why the situation feels so grim here after the leaks is because judiciary is supposed to be that check and balance on the executive and legislative, and having the number of someone who accused the CJI of sexual harassment in this list,
Yeah.
like this is
And that's the other thing. Say, okay, you might say that we want Hindu Rashtra, so everybody who opposes Hindu Rashtra should be spied on. Okay, but the problem then becomes, these are people who are ideologues, but these are also people who are about being in power, right? They're about accumulating and keeping as much power as they can. That is the role. I mean, any government does that. Any person who's a politician eventually does that. These guys are a little bit more aggressive in the way that they want to keep power. But what that means, and even what is the Hindu Rashtra, right? I mean, yes, in the abstract, but what specifically will a Hindu Rashtra look like? Even within the BJP, even within the Hindu right wing, there will be disagreements. So after a certain point, when all the, say, the left and the liberals and the centrists have been neutralized, these tools are going to be turned, they already are being turned on people who are also part of that project but may disagree on certain things with the people in charge. So power, once someone has power and they are able to use it without consequence, they will abuse it. It's a law of like human nature. If you give someone a magic wand and he promises that he'll only use it on people who deserve it, and you don't have a way to stop him, he's going to eventually use it. He'll find a way, an excuse, a reason to use it on you as well.
I feel it's just a matter of time, or how big you've become. If you are a dissident voice, if you are big enough, you are important enough. So you
No,
might
but
be
it's not just about that. It can also be used to get an advantage in negotiations.
Right,
It can be
right,
used to get an advantage in like your own internal sort of thing. It can be used to get blackmail material. Right. So it's not just dissidents. Once you have this power,
huh.
you can, like, once you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So once you have this surveillance power, then any problem looks like something you can solve using this.
That's a great T-shirt code. Once you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's a great T-shirt code. So, Bhanuj, we are at this juncture now. This is the reality that we are living in. Our government is using this software to spy on people. This is the harsh reality. It's time we accept it.
Yeah.
What next? I mean, is this the way politics is going to go from here? Is this the way life is going to go from here? Is there any way we can resist it? I mean, most of the people who are voting people into power aren't really bothered by this. आज सुबह मेरे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप, मेरे फैमिली व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में है, क्या है तुम्हारे पास छुपाने को, क्यों डरते हो तुम सब?
हाँ सही में
तो तुम्हारे पास कुछ छुपाने को है तभी तुम इसको
So
अपोज
just
कर रहे हो.
ask them to give you their account
Bank accounts,
passwords
na?
and logins, right? Not just bank accounts, email, everything. The thing is, there is no person who has nothing to hide, and the problem is that nothing to hide is the wrong lens to look at it.
yep yep
It's about, do we have the right to have certain things, which could be any sort of things, that are only for us, or we control who has access to them, we control who knows what about us. For example, you don't walk around with a billboard with all of your license and talking points telling it to everybody, right? There's an
Yeah.
element of trust. It's about control over your own life. Because
Right.
all of this is very important information. It's about, do you have any sort of control, or and it's about how you look at rights as well. Rights are not something that the government gives you. In fact, the state exists as something that restricts rights in return
Yeah.
for security.
Security,
So
right?
if you look at it from that perspective, then this is obviously a problem. But if you look at it from the perspective of onus is on you not to be hiding something, or not to have
Yeah,
anything
that's-
to hide, then I mean, what is the state for then? So you are free to please share your information with everybody you want. You have nothing to hide. But that doesn't mean that I have to.
So
And
my
also,
question
there are very
to-
legitimate reasons for people to have private, protected conversations.
Yeah,
Governments are,
yeah.
by default, like no matter how good a government is, the state is coercive. So there will be things, any corruption investigations, anything. There are very legitimate reasons to hide stuff from the government. And in terms of what we can do to change it, really, I mean, it first of all have to make people aware of what this really means, because you've seen, especially with the Republic in time, but also with a lot of these TV news channels, there's just been barrage of disinformation, false allegations that it's a hoax, false allegations that Amnesty has walked it back. So, and also this is an abstract, technical sort of matter, right? Most people don't understand hacking itself. So then how is this different from normal surveillance? All of that needs to be simplified and told to people. And and the rest of it is a broader political project to get into power people who support a more liberal, a more democratic, a more rights-based vision of how government should work, which is a very long-term project. Is going to take
and what is the probability of this being
It's a-
getting away from the public memory, as public memory is so short that people
Very
will just
high,
normalize,
very high.
normalize it, and this will just become like another step towards becoming a state like China, like where
Yeah, it's
everything
very
is moved to
high, and the problem is that if it gets normalized, which it already is happening, that
Yeah.
just boldens them to go even further.
Yeah.
exactly.
But they're like, हम तो ये भी कर सकते हैं, किसी को फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
फर्क नहीं पड़ता, हाँ,
I
सही
mean,
में.
why don't we go further? Like, let's try out some death squads now. Who knows?
Yeah, कि अगर उन्होंने कराया तो सही मरवाया होगा उन्होंने मरवाया.
For example, some of the ministers, they haven't hacked the minister's phone because the minister doesn't carry a phone. I forget which specific minister there was. They hacked their orderlies or their private personal assistants or whatever.
Yeah,
So even
yeah.
if you're not the target, even if say you think that the government might be spying on you, so you don't take your phone with you, but anybody around you, their phone can also be turned into a microphone. Right. So I mean, it goes much beyond having anything to hide or not having anything to hide. That's a very basic. That's an argument that is trotted out in defense of surveillance all the time, and it is not in any way a legitimate argument.
Where do we go from here then? How do we resist it? As I was asking you earlier, we can obviously make more and more people aware of what exactly the issue is. I am pretty sure that within 2 weeks' time, nobody will be talking about this. The news cycle is so short in this day and
Yeah.
age that in every 3 hours there is a new Twitter cycle. There is a new news cycle on Twitter, and in 2 weeks' time there will be no one talking about this. Is this a responsibility of the opposition that we have in the parliament to make sure that people are aware of this, or is this the responsibility of people like you and I to spread as much awareness as possible? Is this the responsibility of the media that we have? Who does the onus lie on?
Everyone. I mean, the opposition for sure, and they will try. the opposition has to kind of run with this because they're the targets as well.
Yes.
Media as well. So the problem is so much of our media is compromised, either willingly or unwillingly. You just saw the raids on Dainik Bhaskar because
Yeah,
they were, which
yeah.
are tied to reporting of coronavirus epidemic. Because the actual truth is that English language media very few people actually read, right? Even Republic.
Yeah.
So a million people watch it. A million people in this country is what?
There's nothing. Yeah.
Nothing.
0.01%.
Hindi language media, regional language media has much more power, and a lot of those lean right. Those who don't are made to toe the line with income tax rates. Essentially, like So what we need to do is one is raise awareness. Secondly, first step would be to force the government to acknowledge that it actually has used the software, and to release details about how it was used, what was the decision-making process, how did they decide who was going to
Do you
that.
really see
And
that
will
happening,
happen.
Bhanu? Do you really see that happening?
I think we'll get this data in 5-10 years. I don't think it'll happen now, but
Yeah.
because it will happen through legal challenge, it will happen through parliament, which will require a change in parliament. Even if the government doesn't change, at the very least, a coalition of parties that want this sort of accountability, and then eventually you need to pass through laws that that bring intelligence agencies under the purview of parliament, and also create checks and balances and limits on their power. That is the long-term project for us to have any amount of control over this sort of surveillance. We can't stamp it out completely. No government is going to give up the capability fully.
Yeah.
But at the very least, then it is used in cases that are rare, absolutely justified, and vetted by an independent source. That is the sort of goal for anybody who wants to resist. That is what we have to work towards.
Yeah,
But
and
you-
whenever we get that data, like after even 5 years, then that will be labeled as confidential, just like the Swiss bank data that we got.
Yes, so that is so what's required is a broader push towards transparency across the board. They're trying to gut the RTI Act because RTI
Yeah.
Act allows citizens to find out stuff that is inconvenient for the government. So we need to expand that mandate of transparency, and that will happen. Like I said, it's a long-term project. It's not just about voting in elections. It's about training people who understand this. It's about building independent institutions. It's about generally changing the sort of public discourse that we have around these issues, and that is going to take ages. But I mean, even in the US, it's still a struggle, right? It's always going to be forces that don't want this sort of rights-based thing, that believe that more power in the hands of the government is good, and otherwise, and it's a cat and mouse game. So, while I don't have hope of things changing very soon or in the foreseeable future, I also don't think we should be so fatalistic about it that it'll never change, because then it'll never change. But you have to resist. You have to fight this. You have to figure out creative ways using the institutions and the rights that we do have to resist this and to try and limit the damage as much as possible, because no government, no regime lasts forever.
That's the hope, right? No regime, no. That's the light at the end of the tunnel, that this will also pass. But
it will not pass by itself. No regime leaves by itself.
Yeah, but you say that let's not be fatalistic about it, but
because that's what they want.
Yeah,
they want you to give up.
True.
Like, why is the Bhima Koregaon 16 case happening? They don't have a case. They made up a case.
Yeah.
It isn't just about that these 16 activists, if you get them off the street, then suddenly the resistance will collapse. It is that the state is showing it can pick you up and do whatever.
It's sending a message.
Put you in jail. Yes.
Yeah.
And if we listen to that message, if we internalize that message, then the state wins. And
Fair.
States are more fragile than we think they are, very often. Because it's.
Why do you say so?
I mean, just look at for example, the Arab Spring. Those were authoritarian police states, right? States where for decades people had never even imagined mass protests, forget about a successful revolution. States depend on perception. Authoritarian states, authoritarian regimes depend as much on perception and what people think of their power than the actual power they have. They're very complicated machines, and it's very easy for states to fall apart given the right set of circumstances and the right sort of opposition. There are no state, no country is as like no government is anywhere as absolutely in control as they like to pretend and as they like to project. So even if, say, the media environment changes, for example,
yeah.
that could make a massive difference. I mean, the BJP made BJP and its allies in the media turned the UPA from, this resounding strong government to
a behemoth
a
to
joke
nothing.
in 4 to 6 years.
Right.
What's to say the same can't happen to
And I think all very similar circumstances are aligned right now in the country, and what's just missing is the opposition, right kind of opposition. Like there's a very huge wave going on that कोई भी आ जाए, but ये नहीं आना चाहिए जो अभी government है, because of all
Yeah.
the
No, so
farmers.
I tend to digress from that. So again, that is a sentiment that is being echoed in our echo chambers, in our small bubble, on Twitter. Twitter पे यार बहुत कम population है
नहीं,
यार.
not just Twitter. Like I have talked to people who are doing business and they're like पहली बार वोट दिया था तो अपने पेट पे लात मारी थी, अगर इस बार दोबारा वोट दे देना तो अपने गले पे कार्ड ही लेंगे बस. मतलब even business community, because of whatever has happened, how the COVID pandemic was handled, like neither they were able to save us from the pandemic and neither they were able to continue the businesses. मतलब दोनों ही जगह पे failure हो गया.
And the economic thing is what really hurts. See, for China,
Exactly.
China the CCP has also managed to retain control because over the last 70 odd years, it has pulled hundreds of millions out of poverty and kind of transformed it, the biggest sort of successful poverty alleviation program in world history. Modi tried to do that in the first term. I mean, that was part of the agenda, but then demonetization was shooting themselves in the foot. And they don't have, at least according to me as an outsider, they don't really have a plan or a policy. It's very ad hoc. It's very focused on winning the next election. So you can have a plan and then you change it immediately when certain circumstances change.
Right.
So now in this term, they're increasingly resorting to coercion, to force, and to hatred, and to
Polarization,
polarization. But those things have a shelf life.
Yep.
Right. Polarization after point. If polarization and if these sort of tactics are not accompanied by a material aspect, which is, your lives are getting better. Say, okay, even if Muslim lives are not getting better, Hindu lives need to get better.
Yeah.
If you can't deliver that, if you can't deliver that, then there is a diminishing returns to polarization.
Right.
Which is why what you see is the BJP is not as dominated as what you think, because yes, at the central level, there is no real opposition at the moment. Nobody has been able to organize, which I'm sure stuff like the Pegasus has helped them to make sure that opposition does not coordinate and organize. But at the state levels, they're nowhere near as dominant as they were before 2019, for example. Despite the fact that they have used a lot of dirty tricks to, they bought MPs and MLAs, to bring down state governments, they still lost resoundingly in West Bengal. And there are other states. Maharashtra, lost power. And they are not, the map was looking around 2017-18, the Indian map, state government map was looking very saffron, right? Only the south and a couple of the northeastern states were safe. Punjab, they've lost, and quite decisively, I think, because with this farmers' protest and the way they have responded to it, Punjab will take a while before it thinks of voting in a BJP government at the state. So, at the state level, it is not as dominant, which means that there are still reserves of political power that can resist at a state level as well. It's not just activists versus state machinery. So, the BJP is not...
just about the opposition coming together at the central level. Have another option,
and creatively build ways to work around the sort of media blockade that they've built of any progressive discussions. Build credibility with it. But these things can, with the right moment, with the right momentum, these things can actually happen. Especially now that we have the internet, now that we have, you don't need some millions of dollars to be able to broadcast video content to people, because we're doing this. So I mean, the content is still being put out, but there'll be a moment when people are ready to listen to it.
Yeah.
And when that happens, suddenly things can shift very quickly.
That actually goes against what I've been experiencing over the last 2 or 3 years or so, because in my opinion the consumption patterns of people have shifted from thought out news stories to sensationalist headlines, and sensationalist headlines which are negative will always draw more attention than a positive news story that somebody else is doing.
Yeah, but then what happens then is then you need to find more creative ways of getting people's eyeballs. But like I
True,
said, this is
true,
a shift
true,
that
true.
has happened, right? If you
Huh,
go back to the 90s,
huh.
say in the days of Doordarshan, and you start pushing Arnab content there, nobody will pay attention except right? This is a process that has happened of
Happened.
turning
Yeah, it has happened.
television news into some sort of mudslinging match.
Hmm, hmm,
But
hmm, hmm.
these are not permanent shifts. Nothing is permanent, right? Nothing is permanent except for greed for power. So, so these things shift because economic circumstances, social circumstances shift. Nothing in that sense is set in stone. No party's dominance is set in stone. No particular agenda is set in stone.
Huh, you were very right when you said that the two agendas in the two elections were starkly different. In 2014, the party was hailed as the only party that can bring development to the country.
Yeah.
You have seen XYZ years of this Raj. Now you will see development, and in the next 5 years, when they clearly failed to deliver on that, the next agenda was you are in grave threat right now, and we are the only ones who can
Yeah.
save you from that grave danger. The
Yeah.
the enemy is right across the boundary or the borders, and we are under grave attack, and we are the only people. We are the 56 ka Sina wala only people
Yeah.
who are strong enough you can rely on. So the narrative completely shifted. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Because economically it wasn't going to work. So then fear became the thing. The thing
Yeah.
is that they did the whole Kashmir abrogation, and also they also gave
Yeah.
people these like and the mandirs, Ayodhya mandir. So these were, but there are only so many Ayodhyas. Right? They can't keep putting it outside.
Yeah.
And now the thing is, China's being belligerent, but China's not
Yeah.
Pakistan.
Hmm.
I'll also say this. This is also about media management. If we had a democratic media, if we had a free and independent media that did its job, then Balakot, the strikes, would not have been hailed as this great success because what is confirmed is we attacked what we thought was a
Base camp,
terrorist
yeah.
training camp. We don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
any numbers for how many people died,
Yep.
whether
Yep.
anybody died or whatever.
Yeah.
We lost one plane and we got a pilot captured.
Captured.
We claim lost one plane. They claim they didn't lose any. So, and we don't have evidence to say that they did. And we shot down our own helicopter.
Yeah.
So see, if this was happening, if this was the sort of, we were the UK and we had initiated, because someone in Ireland did a terrorist attack in London, and so not even in London, on the border, and then we
Yeah.
went and we decided we are going to bomb somewhere in Ireland, and they lost one plane, we lost one plane and our own helicopter. In no way would this have been considered a victory.
Yeah.
It only made us look like chumps and irresponsible chumps,
Hmm.
not ready for the war. That also, I'm sure, played some role in China figuring, okay, now we can also be a bit more assertive. And also, the statements that they make, right? With Aksai Chin and all, we will take Aksai Chin back. If you're going to provoke China, then China will test the waters and see
Yep.
whether or not you will stand firm and actually follow up on your threats. Because China is a very aggressive state. China is a rising power and it wants to have more power. It wants to have more geopolitical power. And India is and always has been a rival in Asia in terms of
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
So China doesn't trust us. So if you start making these belligerent statements and ignoring the diplomacy that is done, then what happens is China comes and takes some of your land, and now you're stuck in a stalemate where you can't do anything except for ban some apps, right?
Yeah.
And what have they done? They've cut down Chinese investment. Some of these are good moves because Chinese investment in certain areas is problematic, but it's not going to hurt because in China, China still India's biggest trading partner, right?
Yeah. It is.
So they have the economic power. So
But you have the headline, no. But you have the headlines.
you
ready,
have the
that-
headline. You have the headline, but how long you constantly need to keep generating headlines, right?
Fair. To round this discussion off, Bhanuj, do you have any thoughts on how we can maybe protect ourselves from such malwares or such things from affecting us? What we can do to create more awareness in general about subjects like these, about topics like these? What are your thoughts on that? What can
So
we do as an
there-
individual?
So you can't do anything about Pegasus in terms of keeping your phone safe, other than not having a phone or not using it for anything, including conversations or accessing data that you think is sensitive.
We
So in
can
that
fool the
sense, no,
government
but
by having a phone and talking in person to people.
yeah, but if you have your phone with you, they can still listen in, right?
Yep.
If you carry your phone with you, they can still listen.
Something that you can do is download the regular updates or the patches that
Yeah, and
that
I
Google
mean,
and Apple keep releasing. Yeah.
Pegasus is an expensive hack.
Hmm.
There are cheaper ones that are not as effective, but that you can defend against, and that the government will ideally use first. They won't go straight to Pegasus if you have no protections on the phone. So just look up. There are lots of tools, open source tools developed by organizations like Citizen Lab and all, as well as
Yeah.
dissidents and activists that you can use, and there are certain good hygiene sort of practices in terms of dealing with your data that give you a certain amount of protection from other forms of surveillance. In terms of Pegasus, you kind of have it has to be a political solution. There is no individual technological solution, right? You can keep switching your phone off because apparently they have to reinfect when your phone is switched on again.
Ah.
You can make it a little bit annoying for them. You can leave your phone next to speaker playing some really annoying music. You can screw with them like that, but that's really just for thrills. On a broader level, everyone needs to be more politically engaged. The biggest problem with a lot of Indian politics and a lot of politics, democratic politics in general, is people think political engagement only means going to vote at an election. But that is the necessary but not sufficient step to being a democracy. You have to be actively engaged, educate yourself, and raise your voice when these things happen. Join campaigns, donate to organizations and activists that are working to help. Essentially, you have to create enough public opinion and enough backing for the opposition to then demand some sort of accountability and some sort of legislative action to limit such sort of surveillance. That is really the only real solution, right? And it requires long-term commitment. I know when you have jobs, especially when you have jobs that have nothing to do with this, it's difficult. And if you don't do it, then eventually you will find yourself in a position where you are at odds with what this government, this regime wants. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you will have no
You won't
allies
have any
left. You will
leverage.
have nobody left
Yep.
to fight for you. Yeah.
Fair. Bhanuj, speaking to you has filled me with a little optimism, and it was very kind of you to take so
That's
much time
very
out.
rare. Normally it's the other way around.
It was extremely kind of you to take so much time out and have a free-flowing chat with us. We had a pleasure speaking to you, man. Hope you had a good time as well.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me
Thanks for
on.
joining us, sir.